All right. From the doorway, hanging out with Dust from Moonlow. So first of all, thanks for doing this. I know you got crazy hours compared to where I am right now. It's 10 o'clock in the morning where I am. So, um,
No problem. Yeah, it's 6 in the evening over here in the UK. So yeah, but we've managed to sort it out. So it's good. We've arranged it.
absolutely. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is a little bit about the past first. And
Yeah.
so A Forest of Stars to now.
Yes.
What brought you from there to here? Because this is a very different, drastic kind of sound and world.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I mean, I suppose I've always been interested in a diverse variety of music, and I've also always had this thing where I guess I get bored easily, and I don't like doing the same thing too much. I don't like repeating myself. So yeah, so I guess with Forest of Stars, that was really my first foray into sort of black metal. That was the first time I was in a black metal band. And I guess the interesting thing is what I went to do straight after that was some acoustic music, like solo music as Duncan Evans, my real name. That I still have that project now, and I've got a band, and we do kind of post punk dark folk. Um,
Nice.
but but when it came to Moonlow, actually, I think without necessarily planning it, I think in the vocal delivery, especially, there is a bit of an influence from Mr. Curse, the singer from Forest of Stars, who I really, really rate very highly as a vocalist and as a lyricist. Um, and I didn't plan it like that, but I do think there is a bit of that influence. But yeah, musically, this was something very different from anything I've really done before. As I say, I've always listened to a wide variety of music, heavy stuff, harsh stuff, noisy stuff, but also folk music and singer-songwriter music, and all manner of things. And yeah, I guess for a while I'd had this kind of feeling that I wanted to do something a bit synth-based, where with no guitars and things like that. And yeah, and it came out how it came out. Basically, I didn't plan it too much. It was very much ad hoc, semi-improvised. The lyrics written very, very quickly. The 9 days that the tracks are called like day one, day two, day three. They've got subtitle as well, but it goes up to day nine, and that followed a 9 day period in which I actually wrote those lyrics, and I did them very fast with hardly any editing afterwards. Yeah, look, I'll stop there. Otherwise, I'll just end up explaining everything about everything. But
Well,
yeah, that's kind of
that's what I
where
was
we are. So
gonna
Moonlow wasn't too planned,
ask.
really. Sorry.
That's what I was going to kind of ask. The track, there's 10 tracks, 9 days, and then next. Why is it next?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so basically, this all ties in with the circumstances of this album's creation. So basically, without wanting to talk too much about COVID, because I know everybody's talking about it, and it gets too much, doesn't it? It gets boring almost. But even though it's a very serious thing, obviously. But yeah, basically, I got ill a bit before we all went into lockdown. So I think it was around the same time in the US as the UK. So we're talking about maybe I think it was around early mid-March. In
Okay.
fact, I think I remember the day when I realized that I was ill enough that I had COVID symptoms, and it was like, bad enough to not be able to go to work and things. I think that was the 13th of March, Friday the 13th, actually. So,
Wow.
but there we go. So, yeah, and I basically I got ill, and I suddenly it was a really strange thing because the world was changing. This whole COVID thing was happening. The lockdown happened a few days after I got ill, and it all seemed really crazy. And because I don't know if it was COVID. It probably was. It was all the symptoms. I'm fine. I didn't have to go to hospital or anything, but it was like really
Good.
bad flu that lasted a long time and kept coming back.
Yeah.
And I just kind of had a bit of, I don't know, maybe like a minor existential crisis where everything was just so crazy and the world was changing and I was ill at the same time, and it just suddenly in a way inspired these lyrics and these thoughts. And it was like, because the situation globally was changing every day, and so was my illness. Like, it would get better and then it would get worse, and then all these things would happen. I just felt like writing something. I didn't want it to be about COVID. It's not about COVID at all. But I kind of started to have these, I don't know, these feelings about, I guess, life and death in a way, because, of course, I'm totally fine. It never got bad enough, like I say, that I had to go to hospital or anything. But there was obviously this minor fear of, am I going to die? This disease,
Sure.
this virus is a killer. So I guess I started ruminating on these ideas, and these words just started flowing. And it was very much like I would just wake up and I would see how I felt, and I would just write something, and I would just let it flow out. And that happened over 9 days. And then I kind of thought, right, I've kind of done enough here, and I'm feeling slightly better as well. And it was like, I guess next was almost imagining a death in a way, almost imagining like an apocalypse, like either the world's ended or you've died or whatever it is. And it's like, what's next after that? Kind of thing. Like we build up to this this cacophonous kind of cataclysmic event, whatever that may be, and then it's like, right, what's next?
Gotcha. Cool.
Awesome. The words of that song
are
and in death so rebirth. So it's this idea of rebirth, basically. So there you go. So that's
nice.
That's what.
No, that's a good. That's a good way of letting me know. So I want to kind of talk about the music and vocals, which are more kind of spoken word, kind of more passionately. It almost feels like at times you're on a pulpit, kind of speaking to an audience more than it is sung or things along those lines. I hear a lot of stuff, and I just want to see if maybe these are some of your influences at all, because to me it comes across this way. So I hear like a lot of like early 80s and 90s kind of like indie punk, like Sonic Youth. Like there's a lot of like Sonic Youth elements in it to me. It reminds me a lot of like, I know probably in a weird way, but like Husker Du or things like where it's very passionate, and like you can just tell that like what you're saying you mean, even though you said it was kind of more free form. Like who inspired you? Like what made you kind of go this industrial kind of apocalyptic route with these spoken vocals?
Yeah, well, it's for a start, it's really cool that you've mentioned Husker Du, because I absolutely love Husker Du, and I'm not I wouldn't have necessarily made the connection between Moonlow and Husker Du, but yes, I really like them. And yes, Sonic Youth, obviously, super influential. And yes, I've got a few of their records, Thurston Moore, obviously Genius, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's a strange thing, because I really didn't think too hard about wanting to sound like anyone else. I just knew I wanted it to be different, and I knew I was going to kind of do spoken word. And I first, when I was making these tracks, but for various reasons, lockdown related reasons, I've got a bit of a home studio, and some of the gear was actually in a different location. So I was limited. So I was just working with a laptop and starting to make some of the synth sounds. And then it came to doing the vocals, and I just press record on the built-in mic on the laptop, and I just went for it. And actually, in the end, some of the vocals actually are the original demos that I did just into the laptop, because it just sounded cool, and it just the horrible harshness of it just worked. So yeah, I guess David Tibet from Current 93 is an influence, if anything. And yeah, and I think Mr. Curse from A Forest of Stars, I think there is an influence there without necessarily me intending that. I think that's when I went to do spoken word, I kind of recalled maybe how he would have done spoken word in a very commanding way, and kind of, I guess, and I suppose I was kind of thinking about black metal vocals, but not really screamy ones, just that the kind of almost, I describe it as almost a black metal whisper.
Sure.
Like, yeah. And beyond that, it just kind of came out. But yes, you're right. The whole post-punk thing is massive for me. So yeah, undoubtedly there'll be an influence of that sort of music coming through. Yeah.
Good. I also hear like a lot of, I don't know if you listen to it much at all, but Mr. Doctor kind of Devil Doll. Like there's a very kind of Devil Doll influence in it where your electronic music, it may not have been done on purpose, but it's very orchestral feeling. It's kind of like it kind of feels like there's a noise symphony in the background while you're doing your vocals. So could you kind of explain, like, was there an actual theme while you were doing it? Or did it kind of happen as you were just creating the tracks?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, Devil Doll. Yeah, I have heard Devil Doll. I haven't listened to them for quite a while. I'll have to check them out again, actually, because I remember it being pretty cool. But a long time ago that I last listened to them. Yeah. Oh, okay. So what I did was the lyrics did come first. So it might have been that by the time of, say, day 6, when I was writing the day 6 lyrics, that might have been around the time that I did the day 1 music, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
So what I did was I just brought the lyrics up. So I was looking at the lyrics. I just studied them a bit, and I just thought about the theme of them and the message or the atmosphere. And then I kind of started with one sound. So yeah, I used quite a few sort of mellotron sounds in there. So you've got like mellotron choir and mellotron strings and things like that. Hence the orchestral thing. And I tried to keep it fairly minimal. I didn't want to build up, synth upon synth upon synth, layer upon layer. I wanted to keep it fairly simple and to the point. So I'd find a sound that I was kind of happy with, that the mood felt right. And then actually I would maybe mess about for a few minutes and just come up with a bit of a pattern. And then I would kind of hit record and I would half improvise it. And generally speaking, there was nothing in the way of, well, I didn't work to click tracks for anything at all. And I tried most of the time not to use a strictly timed rhythm. Like there are some melodic elements on some tracks, but it pushes and pulls. It just the tempo changes. So yeah, I just semi-improvised, and often I kept the first take. Not always. Sometimes I went back and did one or two takes. But then once I had sort of 5 minutes of music, I maybe then just laid up a few other sounds and just made sure there was some development there, or went back in and added some maybe some sort of modulation and some different effects that would come in and out and would give a bit more shape to the progression. And then what I would do was, with each successive song, I would listen to the end of the last one and then work from there. So sometimes I would start with the same chord that I'd finished on, or I would purposefully go to a different one that kind of turned it on its head or whatever. And I went in order, track by track, and did it like that. And the only exception to that is the final track next, which as you'll know if you've heard the album, is different. Is kind of an acoustic guitar track. So
very, very different. That's why I was asking.
Yeah. So maybe halfway through the process, I just had this idea that that would happen. And I guess with that, I was maybe slightly inspired by the Wall by Pink Floyd, where at the end you have Outside the Wall, that's like this acoustic track that kind of follows this really awful kind of psychotic kind of horror show thing. So I just kind of wrote, and I just thought of the chords in my head really, and just thought of this passage of lyrics and just noted that down, what it was going to be. But apart from that, it was track by track. Listen to the end of one and to just start and kind of and I very much let it flow. It was, like I say, it was quite improvised, without to. I certainly didn't spend hours planning. I certainly didn't sit down and write things out first. It was sort of like 3 or 4 minutes of planning, then just let's go.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
No, cool. So that's what I was going to talk about as well, is some of the tracks ebb and flow together, and then some are very dissonant. Like they don't gel at all. Like they're very kind of like the beginning of one or the ending of the other, it almost sounds like a different band entirely. So when you explain that, that kind of answered my question. So I appreciate that. That was going to be my next question. But I want to kind of talk about the album cover because if I can be frank, it's one of the most fucked up album covers I've ever seen in my life. All right. Just so my viewers that are listening and watching us right now, it's like a demented pumpkin happy face with stars and then the logos coming out of the head. Like, how does that tie in to the band itself? Like, I'll put a picture of it up so they can see it in this interview, but like, literally, like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, so I suppose, I came up with the basic concept for that. The guy that actually did the art is called Alex Trinkle, who goes by the name of Irvish. So you can follow him. He's on Instagram as Irvish Art Design. Yeah, you can find him on Facebook, and he's got a website, and he's great. And yeah, I first came across him when he was he curated the Prophecy Festival about 2 or 3 years ago. Might be 2017. So he did like a poster and flyer for every one of the bands that were playing. And I really liked his stuff. And I like his attitude, which is that he tries to do something different every time to work with either a different medium or a different technique or something like that. So yeah, when it came around, we didn't have the very long to get the art sorted, because we were starting a PR campaign and we'd signed the record deal, and it's sort of all came around really quickly. So I said to Alex, look, is it cool if I kind of lead this a bit? And I've got an idea. Can I kind of sketch something out and you work on it? And he said, yeah, cool. So I did the most awful, ridiculous sketch. It's just ridiculous. You can't, I mean, I don't know. I might still have it somewhere. I haven't got it now, and it, really, really sketchy, just awful, and lots of scribbled sort of notes. So I just had this idea that because of, it's Moonlow, that it's the moon. So it's supposed to be the moon. And it was just this idea of sort of, I suppose, everything kind of disintegrating. And I suppose, in fact, I think originally in my version, the words were coming out of the moon's mouth, but I think Alex came up with the idea for it coming out of its head, and it's so much better. So it's almost like, somebody's mind's being sucked away or being sucked out of their head. And that perfectly encapsulates the atmosphere of the album. It's supposed to be this journey of like having your mind sucked out. So that was it. I wanted it to be really simple and stark. And I gave him a couple of examples, which were things like current 93 albums, where you've got this thing of a really stark sort of face. There's a distinctive face that David Tibet does the art as well for current 93. So that was an influence. And I just said, yeah, and I wanted it. And I really like that kind of nice, weird turquoisey green that he's used. And then the fact that he's flecked it with this kind of red, so it's almost like blood or something. Look, so that's kind of it, really.
Nice.
Yeah, it's the idea of it being the moon, and it's this. I guess the low is about the sort of the sadness or the fear, and like the moon's just got this kind of sad face, and his brain's being sucked out or mind. So
no, it's really interesting. And so I want to kind of go back to not so much the lyrical content, but just kind of the feeling of the record. So you keep talking about it being more apocalyptic and more kind of dark. There's a lot of uplifting, kind of powerful messages that come through too as well. So there's a real yin and yang on this record. Was that kind of the end result of what you wanted, or again, was that just kind of a random idea or thought that came through each day of the recording?
Yeah, so I suppose, how can I put it? I mean, I suppose some of the feelings that I was going through at the time were like there was this feeling of fear, and also a big sort of theme of the record is almost like possession. Like there's a lot of tracks where there's like two voices, and you've almost got this idea of being possessed by something that's getting right inside you and kind of just screwing you up and eating you from the inside, or whatever it's doing. So I was kind of feeling those feelings of fear and really leaning into those. and seeing what came out. But I suppose also that there's a hope there, and I suppose the hope comes from it's almost like maybe when you totally surrender to, like, right, okay, this is it, I've been possessed, or I'm gonna die, or it's the end of the world, it's all gone. I think there's kind of almost a peace there as well,
Yeah.
where you kind of go, right, you know what? I've accepted it. Everything's gone. It's it's the apocalypse. It's the worst thing ever. But you know what? Actually, okay then. Like, it doesn't matter whether I pay the gas bill next month, or, like, I don't know. It kind of like, I suppose there's this feeling of all your troubles kind of ebbing away to nothing in the face of this absolute apocalyptic, disastrous scenario. So yeah, I guess that's
you
where
can
it comes
feel
from.
that. You absolutely can feel that. So that's a very good description of what it is. So the next question I kind of have is why not go with Prophecy? Like they have so much stuff like this on their label already. They have they have a sub label that does this kind of stuff. Like, let's be honest. Like, why go with Trepanation Records? Pretty much a new upstart, in my mind, rather than going with someone that has a decade of doing Current 93, doing Soul Invictus, doing Ten High, like doing a lot of avant-garde, weird, strange music.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much I should say, but I will say, but so basically, I won't say too much, but I'll kind of say it in a roundabout way. So, I did show a few labels, the record, in demo form, and basically, actually, Trepanation Records was a label that I had in mind straight away, that I had an inkling that they would be interested in the album, and I'd been chatting a little bit to Dan Dolby, who runs the label. Really, really cool guy. In fact, he guested with Crowhurst, another Prophecy band actually, but
Yeah.
he guested with them on the same shows that I guested with them about nearly a year ago now. So I knew him, and yeah, I knew he released some really cool stuff and was a really, really good guy. So I actually had an idea to send it to him, but before I got round to that, I posted on my Duncan Evans page on, I think it's probably Twitter, and I just said, look, I'm working on an album that's kind of like this, and this. Who would be interested to maybe hear it? And he straight away replied, like, oh, please send this to me.
Nice.
So that was really cool. So it just worked out that way. So yeah, look, I did show a few labels, for potential release, but Trepanation were the one that wanted to release it, and I think a great choice. And
Cool.
yeah, it's a really cool sort of deal that Dan does, and it's it doesn't lock you into anything you don't want to be locked into. But at the same time, he's been super supportive. In fact, I have to say it's great, because working with slightly bigger labels can be brilliant, but also they don't have that much time, because they're dealing, like, unless you're one of the biggest bands on that label, they don't always have that much time for you, and that's completely understandable, because they're busy people. But Dan always has time. I can text him at pretty much any hour of the day or night, and he's just like, yeah, man, yeah, whatever. And he's always really accommodating and great to work with. So yeah.
Yeah, he was awesome. He was the one that kind of put this whole thing together for me to talk to you. And like, he messaged me more times than I messaged him. So I told, yeah, like he's definitely a cool guy. So why cassette? I really have to ask this. Okay, I'm part of that cassette culture. I love it too. I'm a musician myself. Put out over a dozen records. I've been on small indies. I've been on big indies. I've done industrial to doom metal. But cassette, like, do you think that is a perfect format for this kind of? Because I notice a lot of noise artists or experimental artists like to go that cassette route.
Yeah, now this is an interesting one for me, because for two reasons. Number one, I've never released anything on cassette before. Forest of Stars did, before I was in the band. They released, I think, the first or second album on cassette, but I wasn't in the band then, so I've never actually been on a cassette release before. So that's number one. And number two, yeah, look, I'll be absolutely honest. I'm not a big cassette guy. Like, I have a massive vinyl collection, and I have a huge CD collection. I don't own many cassettes. I grew up in the era when cassettes were I guess they were the main format, because we were sort of in between. Like we didn't get a CD player till I was maybe 8 years old or something. So before that, when I was listening to music that my parents had around, we were kind of past the vinyl era. Yeah, and cassettes were just around the place. So we're talking sort of late 80s, early 90s. And yeah, to be honest, I do have a nostalgia for them, but I don't, I don't think they're amazing quality. I don't think they sound as good as vinyl or CD. But what I will say is that for this sort of music, for noisy music, for lo-fi experimental music, I do think there's the cassette sound, the limitations of it can actually work in favor of this sort of music. So I'm going to be really interested to hear it when I get my copy on cassette. In fact, I don't even think I own a cassette player, so I'm going to have to borrow one or something. But I think it's cool, I think it's really, I didn't expect cassettes to be the next sort of comeback nostalgia legacy format that younger people got into, but it's kind of cool, and I really like the packaging. It's like the Maltese cross packaging that we've done, so it all unfolds, and that's going to look really cool. And you've got the picture of me, as dust with the covering over my face, like with my arms out and stuff, that goes with the cross of the packaging. So yeah, look, I'm all for it, but yeah, I can't say that I'm a massive cassette guy. So I'm we're treading new water here. Let's find out.
Yeah, I was shocked myself. I've done some cassette only releases, and they sell out so quickly. I'm just shocked at the world today. Like I didn't expect it either. So the digital world that we're in right now. Are you a fan of like SoundCloud, Bandcamp, or would you rather people buy the physical CD or cassette and really kind of engulf themselves into it? If a fan was to get it, what kind of format do you feel is the best way to listen?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer physical, I have to say. I mean, I understand all the arguments. It's much more portable to have your music digitally. It's cheaper. It's less damaging to the environment. All that stuff, I get it. But for me, unless I've got it on a shelf somewhere in the house, I don't feel like I own it. Now, I do music reviews and stuff as well, and Bandcamp and things, and Horlicks and all these digital channels are great for that, because you can just get the music like that, and it doesn't matter where in the world it's been released, and you can review it, and that's great. So, but yeah, my collection of digital download music is largely stuff that I've reviewed, and my real music collection that I feel like I actually properly own is stuff that I've bought on physical copy. So yeah, I would always say get the physical copy, get the artwork, engulf yourself in it, and I do feel as well that I think you kind of value it more. I think you put more value on it when you own it as a physical product. There's less tendency to just do shuffle play or skip or delete. Like I don't know. I remember when you did have to save up to buy a CD, and like I remember when I was into sort of indie music, and I got Blur's 5th album that's just self-titled, and it was a bit weird and different for them, and it was the one that broke them big in America, and it's actually a great record. But when I got that, it wasn't what I expected. I was probably 10, 11 something, but because I'd spent like £15 on it, which is probably like $20, I really worked with it, and I listened again and again, and then I came to appreciate it. And I think if I'd have just downloaded it in 5 seconds, I don't know whether I would have spent the same amount of time getting to know it, if you see what I mean.
Completely feel the same way. I was 13 or 14 years old, and the Colts Electric came out. And I bought that. I was a huge Cult fan early on, and they were way different. And all of a sudden, they sounded like this AC/DC band, and I was like, "Wait a minute! I just spent all this money on this band. Now I got to listen to it." And I grew to love it. So I agree the same way. You have a special place in your heart for those records you saved all that money up to be able to buy. And that's definitely a great analogy. Um, so to turn the page a little bit, if someone was about to listen to Moonlow for the very first time and has never heard them ever before, in 4 or 5 words, how would you describe the sound for them to listen to it for that very first listen?
Okay, so I would say immerse yourself in it. It's like a nightmare and a dream and a journey. It's apocalyptic noise poetry. Flow with it. Some of it's going to be harsh and horrible. Some of it's going to be quite peaceful and calm. Try and enjoy it. That was a lot more than 5 words. Sorry.
But that was that's perfect, though. That's and it is. It goes through all the emotional spectrum. So that's a really good way to be able to say it. Is Moonlow going to be a reoccurring project, or is this just a one-off? Like, are you going to do more of this?
Yeah, now this is the thing. I really don't know, because normally when you start a band or start a project or join a band, you kind of have an idea that, you know, this is going to be an ongoing thing. I've not really done any one-off projects before, and I don't know. I think let's just leave that hanging, and let's just see what happens. I think I would have to be in the right frame of mind. It's not something that I'm going to force.
Okay.
But having said that, I especially with the crazy way the world is at the moment, I could definitely envisage myself being in that frame of mind again. And I think if I did another record, I think I would. I mean, I have thought about it a bit, and I guess I've already got a few ideas for how I would maybe continue it without repeating myself. So I think I'd explore different textures, and I think we'd go harsher and weirder. And yeah, I don't know. So look, yeah, I think it's not unlikely that I'll do it again, but I don't know when. I certainly haven't got any immediate plans. I'm not working on anything with Moonlow right now. So let's just see.
Sure. Is there going to be any kind of video or kind of uh, live show or anything along those lines? And I know with COVID and everything right now, nothing's going to happen until next year. But are you doing any kind of visual presentation for it at all? Are we going to see anything like that in the future?
Yeah, well, yeah, video. I haven't done anything so far. I don't know. Yeah, it would. I think it would be cool to do a video. I think it would be cool to do to spend a bit of money and to get I don't know, get a director in to do something really conceptual and arty and cool with it. So yeah, that's a good idea, and maybe we'll look at that. Live shows. Yeah, I don't know, but I think if there was any demand for it, you know, if people started asking about that, you know, obviously after COVID and all that sort of stuff, then I could see it happening. And I think the way I would maybe do it would be perhaps with a laptop and me doing the live vocals, but manipulating the sounds through the laptop as well. And I think I would do the whole masked up face thing. And yeah, I don't know exactly, but I think we could make that something cool and quite a little bit theatrical. I definitely wouldn't just go up on stage like this. I think
Gotcha.
I'd go in full character as Dust as such. So
Awesome.
yeah, so I think live is a possibility, and if it wasn't for COVID, then I think I'd be considering it already. But with COVID, I think we just have to put it on hold. But yeah, I think that would be something that could work actually.
Nice. I don't know if you've ever heard of a band called Atom Smasher at all, but James Plotkin kind of did a very similar kind of thing. And I saw him about 15 years ago, and he literally wore a costume on stage, brought a little plastic wind-up racetrack up on the stage with a laptop, sang, had video projectors behind it. And yeah, it's harsh electronic music, but it was the most interesting thing to see live because it was so different than what you expected. And that's kind of what you just gave me, is that kind of vision. So
Yeah, I guess that's the sort of thing. And yeah, and I guess I just have to make sure that it really hits home, because I've seen but like, okay, so for example, what's the guy called, Justin Broderick,
oh
who I
god,
really do
yeah,
rate,
sure.
you know,
Jeff
Godflesh and Yezu and all that. But I saw him do an electronic thing once with a laptop, and it just didn't work for me. I just thought it was kind of a bit weak. So yeah, I'd have to make sure that it would really kind of punch you in the stomach when it needed to, if you
Yeah,
see what I mean.
no,
So
no, absolutely. So I always ask this question and it gets different responses from everybody, and I'm ready for a really different response for this one right now. So let's say uh, that people were interested in covering your music, all right? Like they heard it and they really kind of dug it. What band do you think that you like the most that you would want to try and interpret a Moonlow track?
okay, I'm going to go for a weird one here. I'm going to say I think Day 7. Yeah, which is one of the ones that's released already, so you can hear that. It was premiered. I've forgotten who premiered it now. It might have been Sleeping Village Reviews, but anyway,
Okay.
yeah, Day 7, which is the one with a bass loop.
Yep.
Dum da 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 dum da da
Yep.
da 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 dum, that goes through the whole thing. Someone said to me it's really Public Image Limited, and I thought, oh, actually, yeah, and I'm a massive fan of Public Image Limited.
I can hear it.
So you know what? I'm going to say Public Image Limited. I mean, obviously they never would, but yeah, Public Image Limited with John Lydon can cover Moonlow Day 7. There you go.
John Lydon could do some spoken word vocals for sure. I'm not going to. Yeah,
Yes.
cool, very, very awesome. So I'm going to kind of end it here. I'm going to say to you, thank you very much. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you want to talk about before I let you go?
No, I suppose all I would say is with the, well, I said no, then I'm saying yes now. So yes, go on then. So with the whole crisis that's going on at the moment, you know, the COVID and all that, I think one really big issue is music venues. So I suppose if there's local venues near you that you can support in any way that are at risk of closing down, support them. There's with my alter ego Duncan Evans, we're going to be doing a live stream show from a really cool venue in Leeds called Boom quite soon to help raise money for them. But yeah, there's lots of campaigns around and about, so if there are things you can do, try and support those campaigns, because we want there to still be venues once live music's allowed again. We want there to actually be venues for it to happen in, basically.
Awesome, very cool. And the record's out October 16th, right?
That's right, October the 16th, and we've got what have we got? We have got another track premiering on, I've forgotten the date, but it's early October, very early October. It might even be the 1st, so it's like in a few days actually. So look out for that, and that's going to be with them Terra Electia, I think you pronounce it. So yeah, watch out for that, and yeah, October the 16th. You can pre-order it now via the Trepanation Recordings Bandcamp, and there's also a T-shirt which you have until, I think it's until literally tonight actually. So by the time this goes out, it's probably already gone. But anyway, you can pre-order the album, cassette, CD, and digital download, and it will be out on October the 16th. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been Clint with the Doorway 2, hanging out with Dust from Moonlow. Really do appreciate it very much. Thank you again, and like I said, good luck with everything.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.